My parents took money from my trust fund to pay my sister's bill, then called me selfish when I asked about it. So I pressed charged and the investigation forced them to repay everything. My sister Charlotte stood in the doorway of our parents' living room, arms crossed, face twisted with contempt. Behind her, Dad sat in his leather recliner, nodding slowly as if she'd just spoken some profound truth. "You're toxic to this family," Charlotte repeated, enunciating each word like she was explaining something to a child. "Everything was fine until you started stirring up drama. I'd come over to discuss the trust fund my grandmother had left behind, the one that was supposed to be divided equally between Charlotte and me. Somehow, over the past 6 months, nearly $70,000 had vanished from the account. When I'd asked Mom about it, she'd gotten defensive. When I pressed further, she'd called Charlotte, and Charlotte had called this family meeting. Drama. My voice came out quieter than I intended. "I'm asking legitimate questions about money that's legally mine." Dad finally spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Your mother and I have been helping Charlotte through a difficult time. Eric lost his job. They have Sophie and Dylan to think about. We all have to make sacrifices. Sacrifices with my inheritance." "See," Charlotte's voice went shrill. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Always about you. Always putting yourself first. You have a good job, no kids, no real responsibilities. We needed help. Then, you should have asked." Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her face looked tired, older than her 62 years. "Sweetheart, we were going to pay it back. It was just temporary." I caught the past tense. "You've already spent it." Charlotte rolled her eyes. Eric's truck needed repairs. Sophie needed braces. Real life doesn't wait for permission. Something inside me cracked. These people had taken what belonged to me without a word, and now they were acting like I was the villain for noticing. I'd driven 3 hours to have this conversation, taken time off work, and prepared myself for a difficult but necessary discussion. Instead, I'd walked into an ambush. "Maybe it's better if you disappear for a while," Dad said, echoing Charlotte's sentiment. "Let everyone cool down. You're making your mother upset." I looked at Mom, waiting for her to contradict him, to defend me, to acknowledge that what they'd done was wrong. She looked away. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the bank statements I'd finally gotten access to after threatening legal action. $73,000 gone in increments over 6 months. New appliances for Charlotte's kitchen. Eric's truck. A down payment on a boat they'd mentioned at Christmas. Private school tuition. A family vacation to Disney World I hadn't been invited to. They'd stolen from me, then they'd made me the bad guy for caring. My phone buzzed. "Charlotte, hope you're happy. Mom's been crying all night. Dad says his blood pressure is through the roof." Was it worth it? I turned off my phone and opened my laptop. The rage that had been building all evening crystallized into something cold and focused. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. By morning, I'd made 3 decisions that would change everything. First, I called Richard Chen, the attorney who had handled my grandmother's estate. Within an hour, he filed a formal complaint about the misappropriation of trust funds. Criminal charges would follow if restitution wasn't made immediately. The trust had explicit terms, and my parents as trustees had violated them spectacularly. Second, I called my boss and requested an immediate transfer to the Portland office. Our company had been trying to get someone to relocate for months. I'd always said no because of family. Now, family was exactly why I was saying yes. The position came with a 20% raise and started in 2 weeks. Third, I began packing. I didn't tell anyone. No announcement, no explanation, no forwarding address. I changed my phone number, set up a post office box in Portland, and arranged for movers. My apartment lease was month to month. My car was paid off. I had no pets, no boyfriend, nothing tying me to the city except people who'd made it clear I wasn't wanted. So, I took them at their word. The day before the movers came, I drove to the cemetery where Grandma was buried. She'd been a firecracker of a woman, sharp and funny, and fiercely protective of her granddaughters. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for 40 years, saved every penny, and left us each a nest egg because she wanted us to have security. She'd specifically structured the trust, so our parents couldn't touch it until we turned 30. But there was a loophole for family emergencies that required both trustees to approve. Dad had approved taking my money to fund Charlotte's lifestyle. Mom had signed off on it. "I hope you're not disappointed in me," I whispered to the headstone. I tried to be the bigger person. I really did. The Portland transfer happened faster than I expected. Within 10 days, I was settling into a modern apartment with a view of the city, meeting my new colleagues, and discovering that life existed beyond my family's dysfunction. Jennifer, my desk neighbor, invited me to her book club. The woman in 4B had a standing invitation for Sunday brunch. My new boss praised my work ethic. I'd spent so long being the family problem that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be appreciated. 2 weeks after I left, my old phone started ringing. I kept it active but muted, curious to see how long it would take them to notice. The first call came from Mom on a Tuesday afternoon, then another, then 3 more. By Wednesday, Dad had called twice. Charlotte left a voicemail that started with, "Okay, enough with the silent treatment." I listened to that one all the way through. She sounded annoyed, not concerned, like I was being deliberately difficult rather than genuinely gone. By Thursday, the tone changed. Mom's voicemail, "Sweetheart, please call me back. We need to talk about something important. Your father and I went to your apartment, and the landlord said you moved out. That can't be right. Call me." Friday brought panic. "Charlotte, where the hell are you?" "Mom is freaking out. Dad drove to your office and they said you transferred to Portland." "What the actual? You can't just disappear like this." "I could, actually. They told me to." Saturday, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Then I realized it was my Uncle Keith, Mom's brother. We'd always gotten along, but he lived in Florida and we rarely spoke. Your parents asked me to reach out. They're very worried. Also, there's a legal situation developing. The bank is foreclosing on their house. They need to talk to you about the trust fund. It's urgent. I stared at that message for a full minute. Then I called Richard. They're in trouble. He confirmed the lawsuit I filed triggered an audit of their finances. Turns out they've been using the trust as a personal piggy bank for years, not just recently. When the court froze the remaining assets and demanded restitution, they couldn't pay. They took out a second mortgage last year to cover some other debt. And now they're underwater. How underwater? They're looking at bankruptcy if they can't come up with $60,000 in the next 30 days. The foreclosure proceedings have already started. Something twisted in my chest. Not quite guilt, but not quite satisfaction either. And Charlotte, she's listed as a beneficiary of multiple transfers. If your parents can't pay, she's liable too. Her husband's business is already failing. This could destroy them. I thought about Sophie and Dylan, 9 and 6 years old, who had no idea their parents had built their comfortable life on stolen money. I thought about Mom crying and Dad's blood pressure. I thought about Charlotte's text calling me toxic. Then I thought about them taking my inheritance and calling it help, about them gathering together to tell me I was the problem, about Dad suggesting I disappear. What are my options? I asked Richard. You could drop the suit, let them keep what's left, and walk away. Or, he paused, or you could push forward. You'd likely recover most of your money, though it would financially devastate them in the process. I thanked him and hung up. For the next 3 days, I went through the motions of my new life while processing what Richard had told me. The weight of the decision sat heavy on my shoulders, but not in the way they probably hoped. I wasn't wrestling with guilt about destroying my family. I was wrestling with the realization that they'd already been destroying themselves long before I left. Work became my sanctuary. The marketing campaign I'd been leading was gaining traction, and my new boss, a sharp woman named Patricia, who'd built her career from nothing, pulled me aside after a presentation. "You've got real talent," she said. "The Portland office has been waiting for someone with your drive. Where have you been hiding?" "Behind family obligations," I said before I could stop myself. She gave me a knowing look. "Well, you're not hiding anymore. Keep this up and we're looking at a senior position by next quarter." That conversation stayed with me. In my old life, I'd turned down promotions because Charlotte needed babysitting help. I'd skipped networking events because Mom needed someone to drive her to appointments she could have handled herself. I had made myself smaller and smaller to accommodate everyone else's needs, and they'd still decided I was the problem. Jennifer invited me to a gallery opening that Thursday night. I almost said no out of habit, then caught myself. There was no reason to say no anymore. No last-minute calls about family emergencies. No guilt trips about missing Sunday dinner. No Charlotte showing up at my door with her kids because Eric was working late again. The gallery was in a converted warehouse downtown full of local artists and wine that actually tasted good. Jennifer introduced me to her girlfriend, a sculptor named Maya, who had the kind of confidence I was learning to recognize in people who had never been made to feel like a burden. Jennifer says, "You just moved here," Maya said. "What brought you to Portland?" "A need for distance," I said carefully. She nodded like she understood completely. "Sometimes the best thing you can do is start over somewhere. Nobody knows your history." We talked for an hour about art and city life and the freedom of reinvention. Nobody asked about my family. Nobody needed anything from me. It was intoxicating. When I got home that night, my old phone showed 6 missed calls. I'd left it in a drawer, but I could still hear it buzzing against the wood. I pulled it out and scrolled through the notifications without listening to any of them. 3 from Mom, 2 from Charlotte, 1 from a number I didn't recognize, but had a local area code from back home. The text from Uncle Keith came through at 11 p.m. "Your mother is having panic attacks. She can't eat. Your father isn't sleeping. Whatever point you're trying to make, I think you've made it. Please just call them back." I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on the point I'm making is that actions have consequences. They're experiencing theirs. I'm living mine. His response came immediately. "They're your parents. They made a mistake. They made dozens of mistakes over 6 months, then called me toxic for noticing. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern." He didn't text back. Saturday morning, I went for a run through Forest Park, pushing myself up hills that made my lungs burn. The physical exertion helped clear my mind. I'd been in Portland for 3 weeks, and already I could feel myself changing. The constant tension I carried in my shoulders was loosening. The hypervigilance that came from always waiting for the next family crisis was fading. My new neighbor from 4B, an older woman named Ruth, was watering her plants when I got back to the building. She invited me in for coffee and I found myself saying yes again. Her apartment was filled with photographs from travels around the world, every surface telling a story. "I left my family when I was 32, she said out of nowhere, handing me a steaming mug. "Best decision I ever made." I stared at her. "How did you know?" I recognized the look, that mix of relief and residual guilt. "You're wondering if you're a terrible person for feeling happy when they're suffering. Am I?" "No, honey. You're a person who finally put herself first. There's a difference." She settled into her chair with the ease of someone who had made peace with her choices long ago. "My family wanted me to be a certain way, do certain things, sacrifice certain dreams. When I refused, they told me I was selfish, ungrateful that I'd regret it. Did you? Not for a single day." She sipped her coffee. "Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is remove yourself from a toxic system. It forces everyone else to face what they've been avoiding." After I left Ruth's apartment, I sat in my own space and really let myself think about what I wanted, not what they wanted, not what would make peace what I actually wanted. The answer came quickly. I wanted them to face the full weight of what they'd done without me cushioning the blow. I wanted Charlotte to understand that actions have consequences. I wanted my parents to sit with the fact that they'd chosen the daughter who manipulated them over the daughter who had been honest with them. I wanted them to hurt the way I'd hurt when they'd gathered together to tell me I was the problem. You know, Richard called Monday morning with an update. They're trying to negotiate. Your mother's attorney reached out about a settlement. They're offering to pay back half the money over 5 years if you drop the suit. Half? They don't have access to the full amount. The boat was repossessed. Charlotte's house is underwater. They've liquidated what they can, but it's not enough. What do you recommend? Financially, take the settlement. You'll get something, and you won't have to watch your family lose everything in bankruptcy court. Emotionally, that's not my department. I thought about Sophie and Dylan again. They'd be teenagers by the time their parents paid off that debt. They'd grow up in the shadow of this disaster, learning that whoever I was had destroyed the family over money. Except that wasn't true. I hadn't destroyed anything. I just stopped pretending the destruction wasn't happening. No settlement, I told Richard. Full restitution or we proceed with the suit. He was quiet for a moment. You're sure they wouldn't be offering half if they didn't have access to the full amount somewhere? They're trying to minimize their losses. I'm done subsidizing their comfort. All right, I'll let them know. The fallout from that decision was immediate. My old phone exploded with calls and texts. Charlotte left a screaming voicemail about how I was dead to her. Mom sent a rambling email about family loyalty and forgiveness. Dad's message was shorter. I hope you can live with yourself. I could actually better than I'd lived with myself while letting them walk all over me. Aunt Paula called that evening. What are you doing? Your mother is falling apart. Charlotte is talking about having to pull the kids out of their school. Your father is on medication for his blood pressure now. Is this really what you want? What I wanted was for them not to steal from me. What I wanted was for them to apologize instead of calling me toxic. What I wanted was for my own family to treat me with basic respect. Since I didn't get any of that, they can deal with the legal consequences of their theft. It's not theft when it's family. That's exactly when it's theft, Paula. They had a legal responsibility as trustees. They violated it. This isn't about being petty. It's about holding people accountable. She hung up on me. Work threw me a lifeline. Later that week, Patricia called me into her office with news that we'd won a major client, largely due to the pitch I developed. The account was worth 6 figures to the company, and she wanted me to lead the team. This comes with a significant bonus, she said, sliding a folder across her desk. And I'm recommending you for promotion to senior director. You've been here less than a month, and you're already outperforming people who have been with us for years. I looked at the numbers on the paper and felt something shift in my chest. This bonus alone was more than Charlotte had taken in some of her withdrawals. I'd earned this through my own work, my own skills, my own dedication. Nobody had handed it to me. Nobody could take it away. Thank you. I managed. Thank yourself. You did the work. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Can I give you some advice? Whatever you're running from, keep running. It's working. That night, I took myself out to dinner at a restaurant I'd been wanting to try. I sat at the bar with a glass of wine and my laptop, responding to client emails and sketching out ideas for the new campaign. The bartender, a guy around my age named Marcus, kept the wine flowing and the conversation light. You seem different from most people who come in here alone, he said during a lull. How so? You look happy about it. Most people treat solo dining like a punishment. You look like you're exactly where you want to be. He was right. I was exactly where I wanted to be in a city that felt like possibility instead of obligation. Doing work that challenged me, building a life that belonged entirely to me. My old phone buzzed in my purse and I ignored it. The voicemails kept coming, 14 in total by the end of the week. Mom sobbing that they might lose the house. Dad's voice shaking as he explained they'd only borrowed the money because they thought I'd understand. Charlotte screaming that I was destroying the family over money that Grandma would be ashamed of me. That last one almost made me laugh. Grandma had been very clear about her wishes. She told me once during her final illness that she worried Charlotte would manipulate our parents, that she'd set up the trust the way she did, specifically to protect us from each other. Turned out she was right to worry. The shift in their tone from annoyed to panic was almost satisfying. Almost. Mostly, it was just exhausting. Each message was a reminder of the years I'd spent being the family shock absorber, the one who smoothed over problems and made sacrifices and kept the peace. They'd gotten so comfortable with me in that role that they genuinely seemed confused about why I wouldn't jump to fix the disaster they created. Richard called with another update. The court date is set for 6 weeks from now. Your parents have been scrambling to find assets they can liquidate. Charlotte's attorney is arguing that she shouldn't be held liable since the transfers were approved by the trustees. Will that work? Unlikely. She knew where the money came from. She benefited directly. Intent matters. And it's pretty clear everyone involved knew this wasn't legitimate. I spent the next few days diving into my work with an intensity that surprised even me. The new client wanted a complete brand overhaul, and I threw myself into research and strategy sessions. My team responded well to my leadership style, and I realized I'd been suppressing this side of myself for years. At my old position, I'd always held back, worried about seeming too ambitious or too demanding. Here, nobody knew the diminished version of me I'd been back home. Jennifer noticed during a team lunch. You're like a different person in meetings. Confident, direct. It's impressive. I was always capable of this, I said. I just wasn't in an environment where I felt like I could show it. She nodded thoughtfully. Toxic workplaces will do that, or toxic people in general. Speaking from experience, I had a friend group in college that made me feel like everything I did was wrong, like I was always too much or not enough. Took me 2 years after graduation to realize the problem wasn't me. She stabbed a piece of lettuce. Cut them all off. Haven't regretted it once. Her words echoed Ruth's, and I started to see a pattern. The people who had walked away from toxic situations all said the same things. Relief, clarity, growth. Meanwhile, the people still enmeshed in dysfunction kept insisting that family was family. That blood mattered more than behavior, that I should be the bigger person. Being the bigger person I was learning was just code for being the doormat. Travis asked me out that Friday. We'd been flirting for a couple weeks, ever since he'd overheard me talking about kayaking and offered to show me the best rivers in the area. He was easy to talk to, straightforward in a way that felt refreshing after years of navigating my family's emotional manipulation. Full disclosure, I told him over our first dinner together. I'm in the middle of a complicated family situation that involves lawsuits and a lot of drama. If that's a red flag for you, I completely understand. He considered this while chewing his food. Are you the one creating the drama? No, I'm the one who refused to pretend it wasn't happening. Then I don't see a problem. We all have family stuff, he grinned. Mine involves a brother who keeps trying to recruit me into his pyramid scheme. I'll take your complicated over that any day. The date was good. Easy. He made me laugh, and when he walked me to my car, he asked if he could see me again without any games or ambiguity. Just straightforward interest in spending time together. Yes, I said, and meant it. My old phone showed 9 new missed calls when I got home. I'd started leaving it in my apartment entirely now, checking it only when I felt emotionally prepared to handle whatever new crisis they had invented. Tonight's messages ranged from Mom crying about the strain on Dad's heart to Charlotte threatening legal action against me for emotional damage to her children. That last one made me laugh out loud. She was going to sue me for emotional damage, while I was suing them for actual financial theft. The audacity was almost impressive. I called Richard. Charlotte's threatening to countersue. On what grounds? Emotional damage to her kids, apparently. He snorted. She can try. It won't go anywhere. The kids are collateral damage of their parents' theft, not yours. Any halfway decent judge will see that. So, we're still on track. We're on track. Your parents are getting desperate, though. Expect more attempts at emotional manipulation before the court date. He wasn't wrong. The next week brought a new wave of messages, but these were different. Instead of anger or panic, they were reminiscent. Mom sent long emails about my childhood, remembering birthday parties and school plays and family vacations. Dad left a voicemail about teaching me to ride a bike, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. Charlotte sent photos, Sophie's first day of school, Dylan's soccer game, pictures of them opening Christmas presents, playing in the backyard, laughing at some family dinner I hadn't been invited to. The subtext was clear. Look what you're destroying. Look at these happy memories. How can you tear this family apart? But I'd been thinking about memory a lot lately, especially after Ruth's stories about her travels. Memory was selective. They were sending me carefully curated images of family happiness while conveniently forgetting all the times they'd made me feel small. The criticism disguised as concern. The way Charlotte's needs always came first. The slow erosion of my boundaries until I had none left. I remembered Sophie's first day of school. I'd driven 4 hours to be there, taken the day off work, brought a gift. Charlotte had barely acknowledged me, while Mom fawned over every detail of Sophie's outfit. I'd left that visit feeling invisible. I remember Dylan's birth. I'd been at the hospital excited to meet my nephew. Charlotte had taken one look at me and said, "God, you look tired. You're not sick, are you?" I can't have sick people near the baby. I'd spent 2 hours in the waiting room before going home. These weren't the happy family memories they wanted me to think they were. They were evidence of a long pattern I'd been too enmeshed to see clearly. Sunday morning, Jennifer invited me to brunch at a place near the waterfront. The sun was out, the coffee was excellent, and for 2 hours, I sat with people who actually seemed to enjoy my company. Nobody accused me of anything. Nobody demanded I sacrifice my financial security for their poor choices. Nobody suggested I was toxic. Maya was there too, and she brought a friend named Devin who worked in tech. The conversation flowed naturally through topics like hiking trails and restaurant recommendations and a local festival coming up next month. Devin mentioned his family lived in Boston and he only saw them twice a year. "Don't you miss them?" Maya asked. "Not really," Devin said without hesitation. "They're exhausting. Every visit is an interrogation about my life choices. When I'm here, I can just be myself." Amen to that. Jennifer raised her mimosa to chosen family over blood relations. We all clinked glasses and something warm spread through my chest. These people got it. They understood that sometimes the healthiest choice was distance. That family didn't automatically earn unlimited access to your life. That you could build something better from scratch. After brunch, I walked along the waterfront and called Richard from my new phone. "I've been thinking about Sophie and Dylan. Can we structure the settlement so any recovered funds go into a trust for them? Something my parents and Charlotte can't touch. That's generous considering the circumstances. It's not for them. It's for the kids. They didn't ask for any of this. If I can make sure they have something for college or whatever separate from their parents' disaster, I want to do that. I'll draft something. It'll have to be part of the settlement terms, which means convincing your parents to agree. They don't get a choice if the court rules in my favor anyway. Right, technically, no, but it might make them more cooperative if they think it's protecting their grandchildren." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was showing more consideration for Charlotte's kids than my own parents had shown for me. But that was the difference between them and me. I could hold people accountable without being needlessly cruel. Work consumed most of my energy over the next 2 weeks. The rebrand for our new client was ambitious, requiring coordination across multiple departments and constant communication with stakeholders. Patricia gave me more responsibility than I'd ever had before, and I rose to meet it. Late nights at the office became routine, but unlike before, I wasn't staying late to avoid going home. I was staying because I was genuinely engaged with the work. One evening, I was the last person in the office when Travis texted asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I'd been subsisting on vending machine snacks and coffee for hours. Real food sounded incredible. "You work too hard," he said when I slid into the booth across from him 40 minutes later. "I'm making up for lost time." Spent too many years holding myself back. He studied me with those steady blue eyes of his. I want to talk about it. So I told him, not everything, but the broad strokes family that took advantage money that went missing. A lawsuit that was tearing through relationships like a forest fire. I expected judgment or awkwardness. But Travis just listened occasionally, asking clarifying questions. Sounds like you're doing the right thing, he said when I finished. Standing up for yourself isn't the same as being vindictive. My family would disagree. Your family sounds like they're used to you being a pushover, he said matter-of-factly, without malice. People get comfortable with certain dynamics. When you change the rules, they act like you're the problem. But really, they're just mad the old system doesn't work anymore. His words stuck with me long after dinner ended. He was right. I hadn't changed who I fundamentally was. I just stopped participating in a system that required me to set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. The court date loomed closer, and the messages from my family intensified. But something had shifted in me. I no longer felt guilty when I saw their names on my screen. I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just a vast emptiness where obligation used to live. Uncle Keith tried one more time in November, calling from a number I recognized this time. He'd texted it to me months earlier when trying to reach me about the bank foreclosure. Your mother had a health scare yesterday. Blood pressure spike sent her to the ER. She's okay, but the stress is affecting her physically. The doctor said if things don't change, she could have a stroke. Is this really worth it? Did she have health scares when they were stealing my inheritance? Did Dad's blood pressure spike when they were spending my money on a boat? Or did these health problems only start when I demanded accountability? That's not fair. None of this is fair, Keith. That's the point. They made choices, and now they're facing consequences. I didn't create this situation. I just stopped enabling it. So, you're really going to let them lose everything? They're losing everything because of what they did, not because of what I'm doing. There's a difference. He hung up without saying goodbye. 3 days before the court date, Richard called with unexpected news. Your parents have filed for bankruptcy. I sat down hard on my couch. What does that mean for the case? It complicates things. They're claiming they can't pay. The bankruptcy court will determine what assets they have left and how creditors get paid. You're a creditor now, but you'll be in line with everyone else. So, I might not get anything back. You'll get something, but probably not the full amount. Maybe 50-60 cents on the dollar if we're lucky. Unless, he paused. Unless what? Unless someone else steps in. What do you mean? Mr. Thompson, Eric's father, has been asking questions. He's not happy about his grandchildren being caught in this mess. There's a possibility he might negotiate directly with your parents to cover the debt in exchange for control over the remaining assets. Would that help me? If he pays the settlement, yes, you'd get full restitution, but your parents would essentially be indebted to him instead of facing bankruptcy discharge. It would be worse for them in the long run, but better for you. I should have felt triumphant at the possibility. Instead, I felt strangely hollow. Let me know if that happens. Will do. The bankruptcy hearing is in 3 weeks. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment, trying to identify what I felt. Relief, certainly vindication, maybe, but also something sadder and more final. This was it. The last thread connecting me to my family was about to be severed, not by my choice alone, but by their complete inability to take responsibility until the absolute last moment. They hadn't apologized. They hadn't acknowledged wrongdoing. They just found someone else to bail them out, while presumably still believing I was the villain in this story. I called Travis. Want to come over? Or I could use company. He showed up 20 minutes later with takeout and wine. We ate on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life as the sun set. I told him about the settlement, about the strange emptiness I felt, about wondering if I'd done the right thing. Do you regret it? He asked. No, but I think I'm grieving something. Not them as they are, but the family I thought I had. The one that existed in my head where they actually cared about me as much as I cared about them. Travis pulled me against his side. That's the hardest part of setting boundaries with toxic people. You have to mourn the relationship you wanted, while accepting the one that actually existed. We sat there until the wine was gone and the city had fully surrendered to darkness. For the first time since this all started, I let myself cry, not because I regretted my choices, but because those choices had cost me the fantasy of a family that had never really been mine to begin with. The next morning, Dad sent a long email, long rambling, full of justifications and barely concealed resentment. The gist, they'd done what they had to do. I was overreacting. And if I really love my family, I'd fix this. Not apologize, not admit wrongdoing, fix it. I drafted my response carefully. Dad, you told me to disappear. I did. You wanted me gone from the family. I'm gone. You made it clear that Charlotte's needs supersede mine, that her children matter more than my financial security, and that questioning any of this makes me the villain. I heard you. As for the trust fund situation, that's between you and the court now. You violated the terms of a legal document. There are consequences for that. I didn't create this problem. I just stopped pretending it didn't exist. Don't contact me again. I didn't send it right away. I sat with it for an hour, reading and rereading, making sure I meant every word. Then I clicked send. The next few weeks were chaos for them. I know because Aunt Paula and Mom's sister started texting me. Unlike Uncle Keith, she didn't buy into the narrative that I was the villain. She'd never liked how Charlotte manipulated our parents, and she'd been furious when she found out about the trust fund theft. Your mother is trying to sell jewelry to raise money, Paula told me. Your father looks 10 years older. Charlotte is blaming you for everything, but Eric's parents are asking questions about where all their money went. It's all falling apart. Good, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Are you going to help them? Why should I? Paula was quiet for a moment. Because they're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't gaslight you when you ask legitimate questions. Family doesn't tell you to disappear and then panic when you actually do. So, that's it. You're just done. I looked around my new apartment at the life I was building without them. I'd made friends here. My work was thriving. I'd started running in the morning, something I never had time for before because I was always driving across the state to help with some family crisis. I was sleeping better, eating better. The constant anxiety that had lived in my chest for years was finally easing. Yeah, I told Paula. I'm done. 3 days later, Richard called with news. My parents had filed for bankruptcy. The house was going into foreclosure. Charlotte and Eric were trying to work out a payment plan with the court, but it looked grim. Mr. Thompson, Eric's father, had apparently demanded a full accounting of where his son's money had gone, and when he discovered it had been used to pay off my parents' debt, he'd cut them off entirely. They're asking if you'll testify that it was all a misunderstanding, Richard said. That you gave permission for the withdrawals? Absolutely not. That's what I told them. Just wanted you to hear it from me. The next few weeks were chaos for them. During that time, my family made several more attempts to reach me. Charlotte created a new email address to send me photos of Sophie and Dylan with messages like, "Is this what you wanted to hurt innocent children?" Mom sent a letter through Paula talking about forgiveness and family bonds. Dad surprisingly said nothing after that one email. I blocked Charlotte's new email. I sent Mom's letter back unopened. I kept building my life in Portland. In December, nearly 8 months after I had left, Paula called with an update. My parents had lost the house and moved into a small apartment across town. Charlotte and Eric were separated, though not officially divorced yet. Sophie was struggling in school, and Dylan had started acting out. The family had essentially imploded. "Your mother asks about you sometimes," Paula said. "Whether you're okay if you're happy? What do you tell her? That you're thriving?" I smiled. "Good. Do you miss them at all?" I considered the question honestly. Did I miss the mom who'd baked cookies when I was sad? Who taught me to drive? Who'd braided my hair before school? Did I miss the dad who'd carried me on his shoulders? Who'd helped with homework? Who'd scared away my first boyfriend when he made me cry? Those people felt like characters from someone else's life now. "I miss who I thought they were," I finally said. "But that version of them never really existed, did it? Not if they could do what they did and then blame me for noticing." Paula sighed. "Your grandmother would be proud of you, you know. She always said you had steel in your spine." After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony watching the city lights. Somewhere across the country, my family was dealing with the consequences of their choices. My inheritance was mostly recovered, minus legal fees. My life was peaceful and productive. I'd done what they asked. I disappeared. And in disappearing, I'd found myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. They told me I was toxic, that I was the problem, that everything would be better without me. And you know what? They were right. My life was better without them. So much better that even when they came crawling back, desperate and panicked and suddenly very interested in family bonds, I felt nothing but relief at having gotten out. Jennifer asked me once if I felt guilty. We were at book club discussing a novel about family betrayal, and the question just slipped out. Everyone went quiet, waiting for my answer. "No," I said. "I feel free," and I meant it. The last time I heard from Charlotte was on what would have been Grandma's 95th birthday in late January. She sent a text from yet another new number. Mom had another health scare last week. High blood pressure sent her to the ER. "If you have any decency left, you should at least check in." I stared at that message for a long time. I thought about the woman who'd raised me, who'd loved me in her imperfect way. I thought about hospital visits and the weight of family obligation. Then I thought about her nodding along while Dad told me to disappear, about her crying because I'd ask questions instead of staying silent, about her enabling Charlotte's entitlement at every turn. I deleted the message and went back to work. Some people might call me cold for that. Heartless, maybe. But those people weren't there when my own family gathered to tell me I was the problem. They didn't watch their inheritance get stolen and then get blamed for caring. They didn't have to disappear to find peace. I called the hospital directly and paid Mom's ER bill anonymously. It was more than she deserved, but it was also the last high I needed to cut. Richard handled the transaction through a third party. "She never knew it came from me," Paula texted. "She's going to be okay. They're monitoring her blood pressure. She keeps asking for you." I didn't respond. Life moved on. I got another promotion at work in March. I started dating Travis more seriously, and we began talking about moving in together. I bought a kayak and learned to navigate the rivers around Portland. I hosted Thanksgiving for my book club friends and realized this was the first holiday in years I'd actually enjoyed. On New Year's Eve, nearly a year and a half after I'd left, my phone rang with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "It's your father." The voice was older, rougher, but unmistakable. I should have hung up. Instead, I waited. "Your mother is stable now, managing her blood pressure with medication. Charlotte's divorce is final. She's working retail now. Eric moved back in with his parents. Sophie's in 5th grade now, doing better. Dylan just turned 8 and is in 2nd grade. Why are you calling me?" Silence stretched between us. "Maria, I wanted to tell you that you were right about all of it. We did use you as a scapegoat. We did take advantage. And when you called us on it, we tried to make you the villain because it was easier than admitting what we'd done." My hand tightened on the phone. "Is this supposed to be an apology?" "It's an acknowledgement. I know the difference between the two." He coughed and I heard the rattle in his chest. "You don't owe us forgiveness. You don't owe us anything. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What we did to you." "Thanks for the validation," I said, my voice flat. 3 years too late, but thanks. Are you happy in Portland?" The question caught me off guard. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, genuine curiosity about my well-being wasn't one of them. "Yes," I said, "I'm good." Another long pause. "Your grandmother raised you right. I wish I could say the same about what we did after she died." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding the phone, waiting to feel something. Grief, maybe anger, some residual pull of family connection, but there was nothing except a distant sort of relief that he'd finally admitted the truth, even if it changed nothing. Travis found me on the balcony an hour later staring at the city. You okay? My father called, and it doesn't matter anymore. I turned to face him. This man who'd chosen to be in my life without obligation or history or complicated resentment. That part of my life is over. He pulled me close, and I let myself lean into him. In the distance, fireworks started exploding over the river, celebrating the new year. People around the city were making resolutions, promising to be better, to fix broken relationships, to reconnect with family. I had a different kind of resolution. I resolved to keep being happy, to keep building this life I'd carved out for myself, to never again let anyone convince me that protecting myself made me toxic. Charlotte never called. Mom recovered, but never reached out except through intermediaries. And me, I kept living, kept thriving, kept proving every single day that their assessment of me had been projection all along. I wasn't the toxic one. I was just the only one brave enough to walk away. And that, as it turned out, made all the difference.